You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.
What's going on, Los Angeles, and welcome to the LA Football live stream, I guess we'll call it. It's been a while since we've been on here. After dark, we're going to try to stay positive here after a tough Rams loss yet again to the San Francisco Niners, division rival. I guess I don't know if it's surprising at this point, considering they win every time they play. But we're going to get into a little bit, do a little instant reaction, immediate reaction recap here. Joined as always with my co-host Jamal Madney, but joined also with the Rams expert, Rams beat writer Ryan Anderson, our Bruins expert, but also just, a part of the LA Football Network, knows everything there's about football, Will Decker. Gentlemen, thanks for joining on with me. I know it's always awkward when you say, how y'all doing? Who's going to chime in first? So I'll just toss to my co-host first. Madman, how are we doing after that brutal loss yet again to the Niners?
This is one of those nights where you wonder, as someone who doesn't drink, what it would be like to have a couple cocktails. That's the best way I can describe my evening.
Way ahead of you here. Skinny T, are you sipping on anything? Usually you have something on these. No, not right now.
Just water right now. I'm being professional, trying to bring my A game, my sober game. I don't know if that's my A game. We'll see. It's one of those nights you feel for the fan base. These teams seemed to be somewhat evenly matched. Strength on one side, weakness on the other, kind of balancing each other out. But you feel for the Rams fans tonight for sure.
Yeah, another tough one. Kyle Shanahan continues to have let's be real though. We always say, and I'll toss to you, Will, we always say Kyle Shanahan has McVay's number, which, he's the head coach, gets the wins, but typically it's the Niners defense that just always just destroys McVay and the offense, and they did it yet again. But Will, initial thoughts on that? Big win for the Niners, get back to 2-2. Now every NFC West is locked in at 2-2. So let's sit here and say the season's not over by any means for the Rams. Like, let's not be like the Chargers fans a week ago and say the season's over, but a tough loss. What was your initial takeaway from this game?
Yeah, a lot to talk about, a lot of areas for improvement. Anytime you scored less than 10 points, you mentioned the Niners defense is fantastic and they brought their A game tonight, but just so many areas where we can talk about the Rams needing improvement. And it's a lot of different levels on the offense specifically that I'm looking at. So excited to dive in with you guys. This is it's just a joy being able to talk football with my LAFB family. So let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't been live in a while. It's been since the draft? Is that the last time we went live?
Wild weekend in Vegas for all of us too. A great time.
Yeah. More wild for others.
For some than others.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, there might be some video evidence out there that's a little rough, but we'll save that for the government to find at this point. So.
Yeah, video, audio evidence, photo evidence, you name it. But what do you guys want to get into first? Jamal, do we talk about this offensive line? It's one of those things where I don't want to sit here and make excuses because this is the defending Super Bowl champs. You have to play the games. You have to improve week in and week out. You have to kind of roster construct for depth, knowing that injuries do happen. But when you're on your third string center, your third string guard, your other third string guard, your backup tackle from last year after retirement, and you're going against one of the best defensive lines. Actually, statistically, I think, Ryan, you wrote in your article there, statistically, I think the best defensive line, even better than the Bills when it comes down to certain statistics. What can you do? Jamal, are you frustrated by it? Or are you kind of like, it is what it is at this point?
No, it's a really tough situation. And obviously, Ryan, in our pregame show, I felt like if the Rams were going to win, they were going to win by a score of 13-9, because I felt like that's what it was going to take to pull this one out, because I just knew points were going to be so hard to come by. It was such a difficult matchup. I think for me, the bigger concern right now is I think something we alluded to week one, and just the lack of playmaking ability outside of Cooper Kupp. And everything looked like such a slog for the Rams. And, we're at the point where basically only three guys are catching the ball. the two-headed monster at running back is, not to be found here. It's sort of the two-headed puppets almost in the backfield. And, this game kind of was actually pretty evenly played. To me, it came down to the Niners guys making kind of big plays and making something out of nothing. When you look at the Niners 4 scoring drives, the difference in the game for me was 5 plays for the Niners over 20 yards, and the Rams had 0. And when you look at the great play by Debo, you look at the great run by Wilson Jr., you look at, the bleed out with the fullback pass, those were all plays that could have very easily sort of been contained to 8, 12, 15 yards. And it was dudes making plays. And on the Rams side, it's just right now an impossibility. And it's just remarkable that Cooper Kupp had a career high with 14 catches, and he had 2 guys draped all over him the whole game. And it just sort of speaks to how exceptional he is. But this cannot be the recipe moving forward. And again, I go back to obviously offensive line being critical, but I'm just really concerned with the overall talent level on this team. And nothing has sort of made me sort of shy away from that week 1 take, where I just see a lot of average guys outside of Kupp and Donald on the field right now. And I thought McVay did a really nice job, that sort of counter run with Brandon Powell. There were some things that he was trying to do, but my bigger concern than just the offensive line right now is just the overall level of talent. I thought the Rams competed their tails off. They played really hard. They battled. I think the other thing I was looking for was kind of the mindset, the mentality. They brought a championship mentality to this game. They competed their absolute tails off. But what I saw was 2 teams that had a talent discrepancy, and that's my concern moving forward.
Yeah, I like that you say that, because I do think they played really. It was a frustrating game because of the loss, but there's been other games that were much more frustrating where you're just mistake after mistake. And I know there was a few, but overall it was a well-fought game. Perhaps the better talented team won, especially with the injuries. I think for sure you're right. Ryan, and I know you were about to jump in, so you can say what you're going to say first, but then I'll follow up. The question I'm going to ask you was, when you look at how, Jamal brought up that, Cooper Kupp career high, and it looks like basically just Stafford to Kupp. But you see guys like Allen Robinson. Higbee had, some targets as well. But to you, is it a trust issue between Stafford and the other guys? Or is it a play calling issue? Or is it literally guys just not getting open?
Well, so, it comes down to this. The pass rush was just overwhelming and swarming around Stafford the whole game. So that makes him get it out faster. And his first read is always going to be Kupp. So it's Kupp, then check down, Kupp, then check down. Only 2 receivers had more than 2 catches this whole game. That was Higbee, and that was Kupp. And you saw late in the game, Hufanga jumped that route, got that interception, that pick 6 on a route to Higbee. Warner almost got another route, going toward Higbee. So I think that there is, if they're just scheming up plays to get to Kupp and Higbee, it becomes very, very easy for a defense to cover that. If they're I can't watch the all 22s on this. I'm not seeing who's getting open. Last week we saw a couple of receivers get some more catches. You just got to hope that maybe when Van Jefferson gets back, that he's something that can unlock a different element of this offense. But, it really comes down to the offensive line, just allowing all of that pressure around Stafford. He's not, no quarterback is good when he's getting that much pressure. Six sacks today. That he had 7 against the Bills. You can't operate a good offense within that. You either got to get out the ball quicker to, somebody that can create some yak, but that's not happening with running backs. Higbee isn't a Kittle. Kittle can, charge for some extra yards after the catch in tight quarters. So, yeah, I don't know, trust issues or play calling, but, McVay was actually asked about this in the press conference. It was asked specifically why he wasn't getting the ball more to Robinson. He said, "I think it's been a struggle all around." So he's he's recognizing that he's not getting the ball to different receivers. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because I remember last year when they were having their early struggles before they traded for OBJ, before Robert Woods got hurt. And similarly, everyone has this, I don't want to say false sense, but it's like that they forget how things were at one point and remember only the good stuff, right? Like with the ex-girlfriend, you only remember the good times. You don't remember the bad times, why you broke up. And I'm not at all saying there were bad times with Robert Woods, because I absolutely love Robert Woods. I think it's unparalleled how important he is in the running game. That's a whole nother issue, which we'll get to in a minute. But through like 4 or 5 games, Woods had like 7 catches with Stafford coming here. I don't remember the exact stats in front of me, but there was every week is like, why is Woods not involved in the game? They were asking McVay why he's not involved. And McVay said week in and week out, it's my job to get him more involved. I got to scheme him up, do this and that. So it's kind of the similar thing with Allen Robinson now, whether it's a scheme thing of him scheming him open, or whether it's truly Stafford is saying, like you said, I have my first read cup and I just don't have time to look elsewhere because guys are my face right away. I think it's all true in reality. I don't at this point through 4 games am just going to sit here like I saw many on Twitter saying this was the absolute worst signing ever with Robinson. It hasn't looked good by any means, but there were similar issues with the Stafford and Woods connection last year as well. So, Will, piggybacking off that and, this San Francisco defense, D'Amico Ryans, Tre'Davious Ward was just a phenomenal acquisition they got in the offseason, which I don't think was talked about in the offseason. I think now a lot of people are talking about seeing him against Denver last week, seeing him against the Rams this week. But what it is about that Niners defense in basically the Kyle Shanahan versus McVay era, and specifically tonight, that just allows them to be so dominant against this offense, because it's nothing new. It's like they see it every single week, and yet they just can never scheme against it for whatever reason.
Well, what they've built with the defensive line and the defensive line coach they have in Chris Kurasek, who is, if you guys are unfamiliar, he is like the best defensive line coach in football. He builds these lines that have like 3 guys deep at every positions, and they just bring the rain. And this was a perfect example of what happened tonight. 7 sacks by the Niners, 9 tackles for a loss, and they had 11 quarterback hits. Just think about that. Nick Bosa had 5 quarterback hits as a whole. That's a hell of a stat right there. Who's getting in the backfield every given play. The Rams were, dealing with 3rd stringers on the offensive line, and Noteboom really hasn't been the left tackle we've envisioned it thus far. But I just want to say something too, because I remember doing the preseason pod, and Jamal, to his credit, said Allen Robinson was not a great signing. And I thought that was a crazy take in the moment. But when you really break it down, this guy has been just not really schemed for at all. 2 catches for 7 yards tonight. He has 10 catches for 100 yards in the first 4 games of the season. I need to see a little bit more from Allen Robinson, especially as that number 2 guy. Because, yes, they did have Robert Woods, but when Woods left, they were able to get a guy like OBJ who opened up the offense. Allen Robinson has not been getting targeted, not doing anything with the offense for the Rams. So that's been a very interesting conversation there. Really need to see him get involved more. I know Higbee's been kind of picking up the slack, and he's not George Kittle like Ryan said, but he's a very solid tight end. I mean, 10 catches, 73 yards tonight. That's very productive. Mm-hmm. But the main concern for me is the run game. It is I would argue it's a bottom 5 run game in the entire NFL right now. I mean, the lead rusher was Darrell Henderson, 7 carries for 27 yards. The team rushed for 18 carries and 57 yards at 3.2 average. That's not good in any, statistical field, any way you put it. So I'm concerned for Rams fans when it comes to the run game, because to really develop the pass, you got to at least have the threat of the play action. And when Stafford is dropping back, trying to do this play action stuff, it's not working. And I don't know if you guys want to dive deep into Stafford too, but the first 4 games, I have not been impressed. You could always put up with the interceptions and the turnover-worthy plays. He led the NFL in interceptions last year, but he had the 41 touchdowns and was 3rd in the NFL in yards. When you're not getting that and you're still getting a lot of turnover-worthy plays, it's a little concerning. I'm concerned for Rams Nation. You guys tell me your thoughts on Stafford and the run game, man, because I don't know where to go with it after this. And, 2-2, you could be a lot worse than that, but, man, it's concerning.
I promised all my readers that we were going to have a really dynamic wide receiver group. I begged and pleaded and told Jamal it was going to be really exciting.
I'm
It's
playing
tough.
nice right now, Skinny T. I'm playing nice.
I was gonna say.
No. I own it. I thought it was gonna. All the pieces were there. It seemed like it was gonna be there, but there's just no explosiveness in this offense. And I agree, it starts with a run, but I mean, this offensive line is just trash. I mean, I really can't. I was skeptical coming in, replacing Whitworth, possible Hall of Famer, with somebody that had really never been a starter. And I mean, he's healthy, ostensibly, he's in there. He's just really bad. And going back to team building, I've also been a big defender of Tutu Atwell, and now looking back, a second rounder for a left tackle probably would have been the way he should have gone in 2020.
Yeah, don't bring up the Tutu Atwell draft pick. You're gonna just Rams fans just rolling over that. And did he even see the field tonight?
No, he was inactive tonight.
Of course. Yeah.
Ryan, my concern about this game is it would be one thing if the Rams were doing certain things over the course of the first 3 games of the season, and then they just got shut down tonight by an exceptional defense. My concern is that the offensive line, obviously we've talked about, has looked shaky for the first 4 weeks. They have not been able to run the ball the first 4 weeks. Stafford has looked below average the first 4 weeks, and no playmakers outside of Kupp and a little bit of Higbee have emerged over the course of the first 4 weeks. So It's not like the Niners exposed some deficiency that was being camouflaged over the first 3 games of the season. They just doubled down and maximized it. And I want to come to the aid of the offensive line a little bit, if that's even possible. And the one thing I will say is, despite the play of the offensive line, the Rams still had a chance in this game going into late in the third and the fourth, and Stafford really let us down. And especially when you look at that third drive in the red zone where he had Higbee wide open on first down and just pulled that ball. And Stafford was lucky to only have 1 pick tonight because he had another ball that should have been intercepted in the end zone. His play in that particular sequence was really awful. And then, the Hufanga interception had nothing to do with the offensive line. That was just the defense that was leaning towards, hey, there's only one guy. There's only one credible threat on the field that can hurt us in any way, shape, or form. And we're just going to cheat on that side, and we're just going to jump all these routes. So, if Stafford is able to just make a simple throw to Higbee, and the offense is he's just throwing the ball to more guys, and the defense isn't going to cheat that way. That's still a 14-13, 17-13 game in the fourth quarter with the ball, with an opportunity to win. And what I found interesting about the Niners pass rush tonight was, I think it was very controlled aggression. I think that they were very intelligent about when they brought the rush, because I didn't think they rushed Stafford I don't think he was hurried every play. There's some games where a quarterback's just running for his life the whole game, like Mahomes in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, or other scenarios. I saw a rush tonight that when they chose to pressure the quarterback, they were successful 10 out of 10, 11 out of 11 times. And then when they sagged back, they were able to sort of drop back in coverage. So there were moments there for Stafford to do some damage. But it's just unfortunate where this is going. This is hard to believe, but the Rams right now are the worst team in LA, and Stafford is the worst quarterback in LA. And who would have thought that, at the start of this season? But this is where we sit at the beginning of October in LA football.
Well, and it's a great point because, and I don't want to just pile on Stafford. I do think he's good, but you're absolutely right. He's by far the worst quarterback in LA right now, considering what we've seen from DTR, Caleb Wilson, and obviously Justin Herbert. But what you need to see from Stafford and why he was traded for, and we've talked about it a lot on our show, Jamal. I know we've had Ryan and talk. Ryan's written about it. Is we don't want Stafford to play hero ball, because that didn't go well in Detroit. I think that was the reason why he had a lot of the struggles. However, when push comes to shove and it's crunch time, you need him to make plays to get you over the hump, something that Jared Goff just couldn't do in his tenure here. But when you had to have it, had to get it, That's why they brought him in. We saw it a few times last year. We didn't see it a few times last year. Obviously, they did it when it counted in the playoffs in back-to-back games against the Bucks and the Niners, and then in the final drive in the Super Bowl. Had to have it. This year, we haven't seen that. If you want to draw a comparison with how bad Russell Wilson's looked in Denver last week, horrible against the Niners, when the Broncos had to have it at the end of the game, drives the Broncos down for that game-winning touchdown, and the defense puts the clamps down to end the game. They had the opportunity to do that tonight. And, that pick six obviously is what sealed it. And then even driving after that, which the game was pretty much over, but then, threw it away at the end there as well. So that's the concerning thing is like, can he get over that? Which, again, the 4-game stretch in November last year when they went 0-4, didn't win a game in the month of November when they were looking horrible, and then he switched it around. So I'm not throwing in the towel yet, but those are definitely concerning factors. And I want to be this very clear, and then I can toss it back to whoever just wants to jump in. If I see one more person tweeting about Raheem Morris and the defense, you just don't watch football. This is not a defensive issue for the Rams. The Rams essentially gave up 10 points and one poor tackling play on Deebo Samuel, which got him to 17. Defense basically held him to 10 points. And I know it's basically is not a real thing, but this was not a defensive issue for the Rams really at all this season. This is an offensive issue that needs to get fixed very quickly. And, it's going to be tough to do.
The defense will get healthier on the backside, which will definitely help stop those big running plays with Deebo and the running back did today. But the Rams pass rush is not affecting the games at all. There's 0 sacks on Garoppolo tonight. Banged up offensive line from the 49ers. So, I was surprised that they weren't turning it up at all. And, what is Bobby Wagner doing? Where is he?
Laying out streakers.
Yeah,
that was the best tackle of the game.
Yeah, hell of a play by Bobby Wagner on that.
All right, I'm curious, Daniel. Thanks for all your comments, brother, for being in here and leaving all this. But I want to talk about this and toss it to you guys in the panel, and maybe Will, you can. I know you don't specifically cover the Rams, but obviously football. Because I see this a lot of people talk about these soft zones, which I get, and I get it's frustrating because it's kind of that bend but don't break. My opinion is, you've seen these injuries in the secondary, and this is a safer bet than challenging your guys to go man on man. And so you're keeping everyone in front of you to not give up the big shot play. And yeah, it's frustrating that bend but don't break. But hey, outside of that terrible bend and break play to Deebo where they had Darion Kendrick just barely miss it, and then a poor tackle by Rapp and another poor tackle attempt by Jalen Ramsey, we're looking at potentially a 10-point offensive output. So that bend don't break actually did work. But I'm curious your guys' thoughts on it. Will, I'll throw to you first.
Yeah, to me, it wasn't particularly a coverage issue. It was a poor tackling issue. I mean, you look at it, the Deebo play itself is one thing, but there's that 3rd and 13 in the second half where the Niners needed to get it. Screen pass the left side. He goes through 4 Rams, picks up the first down. It was just time and time again. And where the Niners offense is always accelerated is the yards after catch. They have the Kittle, the Deebo. They drafted Ayuk to kind of fill that role. Jimmy Garoppolo literally cannot throw a ball further than 20 yards downfield, and the Rams knew it. They had the game plan for it. Name another team on 3rd and long, they're going to screen passes. And they did it again to Ayuk on that same drive to set up a field goal. So to me, it was not a coverage issue. It was more a poor tackling issue for some of these guys. And to kind of piggyback off what Ryan said earlier, losing Von Miller was so crucial to this team because they do have Aaron Donald on the inside to generate pass rush. No questions. Maybe the greatest defensive player I've ever seen in my lifetime, but they have not been able to recover from losing a guy like Von Miller to generate the edge pressure that is necessary to have an effective pass rush in today's NFL. So when it comes down to just poor tackling and edge rushing ability, the Rams are very circumspect in both these areas. And I just need to see more from both of those sides of the football for this Rams defense to really elevate to that level we were seeing at last year.
Yeah, no Trent Williams, arguably best tackle in the game, and still 0 sacks on Jimmy G. They had the almost sack where they decided not to block Aaron Donald, but Jimmy G was able to throw it in the dirt right in front of his running back. But how do you fix that, Jamal? Because, these are the guys they got. Do they need to blitz more? Do they need to, what do you think? How do they fix that issue?
Look, Ryan, and this is, not to pour, gasoline on the fire here, but this is why I was upset, right, in the offseason, where when you make that sort of 2 for 2, where you give up Vaughn and you give up Woods and you get back Wagner and you get back Allen Robinson, fine players in their regard, but not what you need, in terms of complementary football to what you already have. You have guys that are very good, but not necessary to what you're trying to do. And that was really my concern about this team kind of taking a step back. And it's sort of played out that way the first 4 weeks of the season. I think for me, in order to be able to generate that pass rush, because if you're going to go soft zone and you're not going to tackle these guys on the back end anyway, then you might as well play Russian roulette and try to get to the quarterback, right? Like the whole purpose of playing zone is that you have to be sure tacklers. And the whole principle of zone is I want to be able to maximize the number of plays that an offense runs over the course of a drive and ultimately have them self-destruct, either through penalty, either through when you get into the red zone and the field shrinks and you can do more defensive concepts or whatever. But if you're not sure tackling ability is not there, then you're just sitting ducks back there. And so for me, I think it starts with getting a little bit more aggressive with the blitz, doing different stunts, and trying to sort of generate some things defensively in terms of pressure. And, potentially I think that there's got to be some different packages that need to be run with the Rams right now. They've got some guys between, Floyd and so forth, but I got to see a little bit more aggressiveness out of this defense.
Yeah, and I think that starts with the linebackers. I think they're sorely underutilized, and that points exactly to what you were saying about their aggressiveness. If you've got a guy in the middle that's being quadruple teamed, triple teamed, double teamed across the board, send somebody through the middle.
Right.
Send Bobby Wagner, send Ernest Jones through the middle. They're both really good pass rushers. Saw it at training camp, saw them run those kinds of plays against themselves. I haven't seen it so much. And I think, last season, before they added Von Miller, they were one of the top pass rushing teams in the league. And this team was always defense was always at its best when they were allowed to just kind of pin their ears back a bit. And they've just been on their heels so often this season. And, I don't know if this bend not break thing is affecting that or not, but they're not, they're not generating the pass rush.
Yeah, I would love to see. And Raheem Morris, I've said many times, I think he's a very good coach. I think he'll be a head coach again soon. He's done a good job, I think, with what he's had and different changes to personnel that we've seen a lot just over his, year and 4 games as being the DC here in LA. But I want to see him get a little bit more creative in some of the star players he have. And I know Jalen Ramsey is not Derwin James and he's not a safety, but it's very fun sometimes seeing Brandon Staley use Derwin James on those safety blitzes, use him in the box, use him differently, because I know they're not the same player, but they do have similar skill sets. And Jalen Ramsey is a guy that, especially if he's not as great in man as he used to be, well, why not put him in the box and blitz the quarterback? Like, let him get after and be a dog and go make a play happen on a twist or free someone up on the inside. Because if you got to account for Ramsey coming like a bat out of hell over the edge, well, guess what? Then that's going to spring Leonard Floyd loose. So I'd love to see a little bit more creativity in that regard. I think that'd be just fun to watch. But B, why not? Let's just throw some fun in here and then throw some backyard football on and see what happens. So,
and Ryan, to your point, not to interject here, but some of Ramsey's best plays tonight were, rushing the quarterback. He had that beautiful tip where he jumped and with his left hand really extended. And then he and Ayuk, man, going at it. I mean, it was old school Charles Woodson, David Boston stuff going on over there, so, let the dog out of the cage, if you will. I agree with that.
Yeah. So, all right, let's wrap up with this. We're hitting about 30 minutes, unless you guys have anything else you want to touch on, but we'll go around.
I will say is just defensively, they're also playing like a team that doesn't have a lot of confidence in their offense in big games. Yeah. You can be aggressive, you can blitz, you can play some high risk football on the defensive side, when you know your offense has your back and you know that, hey, if we make a mistake, the offense can kind of get it back, or we can be in a position where the offense is going to be able to set the tone, take a lead, make opposing teams one-dimensional, and then we can kind of pin our ears back. They're playing like, it's like they're playing like one of these great baseball teams where, you got your ace on the mound and you're like, man, if I give up more than 2 runs, we got no shot tonight. And I see a lot of that. There are a lot of similarities between that Bills game and that Niners game. That's 2 games now against, really good teams, elite teams. And the tentativeness on defense was kind of, hey, we're just trying to bend but don't break. And because we don't know really what we have offensively. I mean, this is 19 points now. They're averaging 9.5 points in the 2 big games, putting up 31 against the Falcons and 20 against the Cardinals, fine. But in the big games, to only be averaging 9.5, that inefficiency on offense is bleeding over into defensive performance.
Yeah, and then you look at their schedule in the next couple of weeks. Cowboys, good pass rush. Carolina, whatever. Back at Niners. They're paying the Niners twice in 1 month. So,
Yeah. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah. And, if I were to make a correction for this team moving forward, this is a team that loves to make transactions, loves to make moves. I just want to throw it out there. Kareem Hunt's out there. You need a help in your running game. Go get a back that can, actually make the play extended forward because, some credence is to the offensive line, but from my personal opinion, Darrell Henderson was never the guy coming in this year. That's been more validating. Cam Akers has clearly taken a step back. Go get Kareem Hunt for a 4th or 5th. That's at least a solid back in this NFL that can at least enhance your running game enough to make your offense a little bit different and a little bit more high level, if you will. So Kareem Hunt's out there. Let's make a change, Rams. I know Les Snead's probably listening to this right now going, I got a fit on the table. I'm talking to Cleveland right now as we speak. So hopefully that's what happens for the Rams fans moving forward.
And Will Decker's phone is blowing up from Les Snead saying, you want to come in and be my assistant GM.
You can be as Jonah Hill. You can be as Jonah Hill.
That's who I am. Yeah, Moneyball. He gets on base.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it's starting to get time where they need to. I know they brought in Malcolm Brown, former Ram, and he's back and had a couple plays out there. But you see, like the Broncos. I hate to bring it back to the Broncos, but they go and sign Latavius Murray off the Saints practice squad, and I think that's a guy that kind of has some juice that maybe this Rams team could go out. Obviously, you can't go after him specifically, but. I mentioned when we had Tracy on Jamal on our show to pregame the show or pregame the game. And I said, hey, if this Rams team runs the ball 25 times, I think they have a really good shot to win this game. And lo and behold, they run the ball 16 times. And this was a ball game the entire game until that pick 6. And I know the offensive line has not been good, but when you have your quarterback thrown it 48 times, that's bad play calling. That's just the defense knows what's coming, and hence why that pick 6 happens. They knew it because A, Stafford's only throwing it to Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee, which both were lined up together on that side, and B, they're throwing it every single freaking play, so they know exactly what's coming. So they need to figure out the running game. That's my biggest concern, along with Mia here. So we'll end it with this. We'll go around the horn. We'll start with Will, then we'll go Skinny T, and the one with Jamal, and then I'll give my thoughts. How concerned are you with this team moving forward? You can give me a barometer 1 to 10 or just kind of break it down. But what's your concern level through 4 weeks with this team overall?
You can't go full panic right now, but it's a 6.5, 7 right now. If you're a championship team, you want to be in it with these championship teams that you're playing. The 49ers, for all their faults, made an NFC championship game last year. The Bills, are everyone's darling right now, Super Bowl favorites. Those games, and granted this one was a little closer, but I think that was more to do with who was quarterbacking the 49ers as opposed to, who's quarterbacking the Bills. The 49ers just had a decent quarterback out there. I mean, this was not a close game by any facet. So, yeah, I'm at a 7. Rams got to figure it out. No reason to panic. You're 2-2, but it's time to step up. Cowboys game is a big game next week.
Get CMC. I would love that. Bring CMC to LA. Oh, that'd be a lot of fun.
You want him to ride the bench, ride the stretcher off the field? What do you want CMC?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, more injury concern there, but hey, I'd love it if he was healthy. All right, Skinny T, level of concern.
Okay, so it's a long season. Still a lot of games left. So, teams evolve over time. Things happen. Things get better. Things get worse over time. My concern is looking forward through the schedule. It doesn't get a lot easier. They've played a lot of their cupcakes pretty early on. They've got a couple Seahawks games at the end of the year, but they're heading into games with, Kansas City, another Niners game. They've got a Chargers game. They've got a Broncos game. There's Green Bay, I think, is on the schedule as well. So, I mean, these wins, every team in the NFC West is 2-2.
Yep.
This is anybody's ball game right now. So
Yeah.
all these little games are going to start adding up, and that's a wild card spot. That's missing the playoffs. They went 9-7 a couple years ago and missed the playoffs. So
Jamal, level of concern.
Yeah, I'm at a yellow, let's call it, where Will was maybe 7.5, certainly not panic, but I was at a yellow about the beginning of the year. I mean, I was at a yellow right after that Bills game without sort of overreacting, just because I saw the product on the field and nothing has really changed. And so for me, I'm really looking at this Cowboys game, not just in terms of, how they come out and play, but the level of execution. We got to see more playmakers involved. We got to see more guys touching the ball. And if that's not taking place, then my level of concern will go higher, because, we're now between this week and next week, we're going to be past the quarter point of the season. So now this is where you got to really sort of lather up and get ready for really quality football over the final 11, 12 weeks. So I'm at a yellow, really excited about this Cowboys game. Short week. How do they bounce back as a championship team? And what's the resolve that they demonstrate against a marquee team at home? So really excited. We'll learn a lot about the Rams the next 6 days.
Before I give my final thoughts, just so I know, Jamal, what's your color scheme of concern? Is it blue, yellow, red? Is it what? How does the palette go?
Green. Green is, we're good to go. Yellow is,
Okay.
I'm concerned. And then, red is, you're
Full stop.
either, Arizona State or Colorado or the Texans.
Fair enough. Nice jabs there too. So, all right, I'll stick with a 1 to 10 scale, and I'll go a little under what Will and Ryan did, and I'll go 5.5, and that probably seems very optimistic, but here's why. And I'll bump that up a point if I'm buying points on betting. I'll bump it up to 6 because of injuries. That is actually concerning, seeing how these guys can get healthy. Van Jefferson, who we thought was maybe going to miss a game, then they have to put on IR. So it's how lingering is that issue going to be? Is he obviously he's not on the full season IR, but will he be the same? How do we really know if they had to put him on there? The offensive line, Brian Allen misses another game. Coleman Shelton now with the ankle. How long is he going to be out? So that bumps that up. But to me, here's why I have it as 6 and not higher. 1, I'm not changing my level of concern from last week to this week. It was a 6 going into this game, and it's a 6 now just because the Rams just don't beat the Niners. For whatever reason it is, as frustrating it is for fans, as painful it is to continually lose to your rival, they just don't beat the Niners. For whatever, it's kind of like other teams have that one game that's their bugaboo, similar to what the Jeff Fisher era always beat the Seahawks. So it is what it is, but I think they get past that. And then 2, because the NFC in general just looks so not strong. I mean, you have the Buccaneers. I know the score ended up being 10 points, but they essentially got blown out by the Chiefs at home. You really have no other NFC. The Packers barely beat a third-string quarterback-led Patriots in the final seconds of overtime. So for that reason, I may be overly concerned about this team beating an AFC team in the Super Bowl, but I'm not concerned about playoff aspirations. I'm not concerned about the division because everyone's tied right now. It's a bad NFC. The Rams need to get over some injuries. They need to get things right that we talked about this entire live stream. But I'm keeping it at 6, even keeled. Go ahead, Will. Look like you wanted to add something.
Yeah, and we're talking about the NFC as it is right now, right? Let's put a little bit of a pause to this Eagles Super Bowl buzz right now. When they beat an actual contender, let me know. They've beaten Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff. The Jags are probably the best team they've beaten, and that team has had the number 1 pick the last 2 years consecutively. I know Doug Peterson is doing nice things there, but they're a 500 football team. They're not killing the world right now. So yeah, that's just kind of my Eagles rant. I'm sick of people declaring them NFC champions after 4 games. So let's calm down about that. You are right about the NFC though, man. Like Packers, speaking of weapons, like we're complaining about the Rams' weapons. My God, the Packers' weapons are a disgrace right now. And the Bucks, the most confident about them on paper, but come on, yeah, I don't know who's going to win the NFC. It's going to be a really interesting down the stretch conversation. So the Rams could be one.
Who says no in this trade scenario? Rams trade Allen Robinson for AJ Dillon straight up. Packers need a receiver like nobody's business. Rams need a running back. The Packers aren't trading Aaron Jones, but who says no in that scenario? Or do they both say yes?
The Packers would say yes. They have a pretty dynamic running back room there. I don't know if they would go for it.
Dillon's good, but he's never been as advertised to me. So, he's a very solid running back number 2. I think I would prefer Kareem Hunt if we were going with the same conversation of trading for a running back. And I know Hunt is technically a number 2 behind Chubb, but Chubb's like a top 3 back in the league for my money. So,
for sure.
I think Hunt has at least had that moment, and granted, it was a couple years ago with the Chiefs, but I saw him really elevate to be number 1 status. And, we'll see what happens, man. NFC is, shout out Kai Ray. NFC looks pretty weird.
Right, that's a strong statement for you. 4 games into his Rams tenure, he's already on the trading block for
I've been very pro A-Rob, but I just you got to throw those out there.
You got to throw it out there. I'm really curious to see who Allen Robinson really is, because I think that he has played on a lot of bad teams. And when you've played on a lot of bad teams, there's a lot of empty yards in the second halves of those games when you're really behind. And I have my inclination is that Allen Robinson was more of a product of bad teams and empty yards. And so, even the 1 year he was with Jacksonville, they went to the AFC Championship game. He was hurt that whole year. He didn't play. They went to the AFC Championship game without him. And so for me, that I want to see who Allen Robinson really is the next couple of weeks.
In other words,
about Christian Kirk, right? And that contract that Jacksonville gave him, and he was basically a bank robber. But Christian Kirk right now is making Allen Robinson. Christian Kirk's looking like Jerry Rice right now compared to Allen Robinson. We need to see what's going on with Allen Robinson. Really curious, and it's got to start with this Cowboys game.
Jamal asking for the real Allen Robinson to please stand up. Yeah.
To throw some last stats at you, through 4 weeks last year.
I love Robert. Is Robinson getting breakfast with Staff and Cup, or do they make him sit at another table?
Apparently, the other table,
man.
Yeah.
That's the kind of questions we need to be bringing to this. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we're getting to see that breakfast table, but through 4 weeks last year, Stafford's first year at quarterback, Robert Woods didn't have over 60 yards in any single game. His 5th game, 150 yards, 12 receptions. So I'm predicting Allen Robinson has a blow-up game week 5 against the Cowboys, and the Rams get back on track. But we'll have plenty of time.
I think we need to be more specific, because I think Allen Robinson might have 60 yards on the season. So like a blow-up game for Allen Robinson at this point is like 28 yards. So I think we want to say like Allen Robinson's going to have like an actual person's big game, not a big game for Allen Robinson.
Hey, he had a touchdown and over like 80 yards against the Falcons.
A grown-up big game, not a Happy Meal big game. Yeah, that's what we're hoping for against the Cowboys.
Hey, let's see.
Allen Robinson so far this year is getting 2.3 yards of separation per next-gen stats, which is half of Ben Skoranek, basically. So, I mean,
that's telling.
Not as advertised.
That's not a great stat.
Empty yards, gentlemen. Empty yards.
Well, we'll see. We got a lot of season ahead. Hopefully that turns around in week 5 for the Rams' sake. So, gentlemen, this was fun. Rams fall to the Niners to drop to 2-2. Niners improved to 2-2, but it's a long season. We'll see if they can get it corrected. This is the LA Football Network. I'm Ryan Dyra, joined by Jamal Madney, Will Decker, Ryan Anderson. We'll be here covering all your LA football needs. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Gentlemen, thanks as always. Appreciate you for jumping on.
Thanks so much.